Hey folks, this is Walker, one of the two hosts of Video Talk. Just wanted to jump on before the episode and let you know that what you're about to listen to is part 2 of Zach and I's conversation about the Radiohead album Kid A. Now, in the first episode, we discuss a lot of the conception and background of the album, what made it such a massive shift for the band, and in this episode, we launch right into a song-by-song analysis. Make sure you go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't, and enjoy part 2 of our discussion about Kid A.
And so with that, we will get into some of the song-by-song stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
This song opens with what I consider not just to be the best opener of a Radiohead album, but possibly the best opener
of any
album ever. So this starts off with Everything in Its Right Place, the opening track to Kid A by Radiohead.
Wake me up inside. I can't wake up.
So right away, Zach is mouthing along. Right away, we see the band is in a different phase. Tom's vocals sound very different. You got Ed saying, "Wake me up inside."
I've been living a lie. There's nothing inside.
So Zach, what do you think of this as a new direction for Radiohead?
I don't know. The mix of the guitars is like really front and center.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Lyrically, we've gone in a different direction.
And you can see why this was divisive. A lot of people were like, this doesn't sound like Radiohead. This isn't Radiohead.
No.
This is Evanescence.
I had a friend who thought they were called Ever-Essence, despite my ample corrections I provided. And one time he said it again for like the 15th time, and I was like, it's not fucking Ever-Essence.
You're like, this is my favorite band, and you will get it right.
No, I knew they were bad by that point.
No, I'm sorry. I was having a little bit of fun, listeners, and Zach did not laugh on mic, but if you had seen his face when that first pumped through his headphones, you would have known why I was excited to do that all day.
I was looking up in terror. I thought you were going to go, fuck, why did I do that?
No, I earlier today, for some reason, just thought that would be really funny to do. And I think I was right. Now, were you into Evanescence, or was that... Because I was very into that when it came out.
I did not immediately think they were dumb. So, I was into a lot of stupid stuff. I have no shame in admitting the dumb things, but I was never into them, but I didn't immediately go, this is stupid. Or we might have used a worse word for stupid back in those days. Sure. We're not going to say what it was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We don't need to. But listeners, we hope you're not even thinking it. But no, that for me was very exciting because it was like, oh, I'm a Christian, but this is like some hardcore shit.
Oh, were they? Oh, yeah.
They were like Creed. They were like a band that started out as a Christian label.
Or Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Or Cannibal Corpse. Yes. It's like, they were one of those bands that was finding mainstream success by being vaguely Christian. Like, wake me up inside.
Frozen inside without your love.
Exactly. It's like you can definitely apply a Christian message to that, or it can just be about anything, really. Also, like Lifehouse with that song, I'm falling even more in love with you. I think they were like, this song's about God.
Right. It's really about his girlfriend's vagina. But it works as a double.
Yeah, exactly. The original lyric was, I'm hanging by a pussy here with you. That is just about when the pussy is too tight. Is this our bluest episode ever?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
In one of our episodes, you said it's like our friend that can suck his own dick or something.
Sure.
And one of the reviews in this book that I've been referencing throughout says, Kid A is very much an exercise in look, Ma, I can suck my own cock. And I was like, I wonder if Walker read this review.
That was a
Kid A.
review someone made of this album?
Yes. Said that
Damn.
it's look, Ma, I can suck my own cock type of electronic music. And I'm
Jesus
like,
Christ.
who is telling their mom to look at that?
That sounds like a Pitchfork writer who would change their numerical score if they could.
From a 6.9 to a 7.0.
Yeah, and the only thing they'll change is they'll be like, this actually is not inclusive of people, of non-penis individuals.
Or of people that can't suck their own cock.
Exactly. Yeah. This review was only written to Marilyn Manson. I'm going to press pause because my dog clearly wants to be fed.
No
I'm
problem.
going to feed her real quick. So, all that in mind and all that fun out of the way. Let's get down to the drudgery. Oh, it's still on. That was a genuine accident. All right, folks. That's enough of that. This is Radiohead's Kid A, starting off with Everything in Its Right Place. Just want to let it breathe for a second before we put it in the background.
Moving a little brisker.
Everything in its right place. What do you think about this, Zach?
Well, you kind of unintentionally tipped my hand. This is my favorite Radiohead opener. I think you get a lot from a Radiohead opening track, and I think this is absolutely a tone setter.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of YouTube videos. There's some writing online about what key this song is actually in.
Okay.
Because in Western music we're used to a song having a tonal center, right? Like, and even for people that aren't musicians or whatever, like a great example of a song is "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd is in the key of G, right? And it has there's different chords in it besides the key of G. But you can think of a tonal center as your foundation, your foundation for melody. And we were talking about how this part's great.
Sure. You want to let this part play?
Let's put it. I'll come back to that. Got chills.
Right, and here it switches to like a kind of major chord.
So we're pulling to F, but we're bouncing between C. So basically, just to kind of normalize what I was trying to say, there's not a solid foundation on this. You can sing along, and there is a little bit of a melody, but and I'm going to go to my notes here. So everything in its right place. This is in terms of kind of the music theory aspect, but so it's in the key of C Phrygian. So Phrygian is a minor scale, but so it's written in the key of C Phrygian, which is the second most popular key amongst Phrygian keys, which is a scale type that is used in metal a lot. So Metallica would use the Phrygian scale a lot.
Okay.
And it's the 52nd most popular key among all keys. So it's not high in terms of keys that are used in popular music.
F Phrygian.
C Phrygian.
C Phrygian. Okay.
So it's similar to the C minor scale, except that it has a second flattened note, right? So chord progressions in Phrygian often rely on the major chord built off its second scale degree, and we can go on and on here. But basically, what I took from that is, okay, so it's a very uncommon key type used, right? And I think it does strike your ears that way. But what's more interesting is there's a YouTube video, I forget the channel, maybe we'll put it in the notes, but is a woman playing this song on piano, and she demonstrates that lyrically there might be a bit of word painting going on in the second verse, if you could call it that, of there are two colors in my head. She said if you trade that word out for tonic, and a tonic is what I was saying, guys. It's your tonal center. It's your foundation that your ear goes, oh, okay, I kind of cling to that. She said, replace the word color with tonic. There are two tonics in my head, because he's just bouncing back and forth, and there's so much. And what that creates is tension, right? So that song is beautiful. It's interesting. It's funky timing, but it's just a tone setter in that it creates a lot of ambiguous tension. Even the way it builds to its finale, and then it just kind of levels out. And I think that Kid A goes a lot of different places. It's beautiful. It's melodic. But I think I love that song for its cleverness and the vocals and everything, but it just sets such a tone for what's to come in the same way Airbag did. But
Right.
Airbag is heavy on guitars and all that. So that was quite a bit, but those are my thoughts on that song.
No, that's very, I mean, I don't have the technical vocabulary to add anything to that, but I think that's really interesting. I also think it's a real tone setter for what we said too, in terms of the approach to the lyrics on this album. The lyrics to that song repeated several times, but the lyrics are everything in its right place. Yesterday I woke up sucking a lemon.
Sucking on lemon.
Sucking on a lemon. I know. I guess I got a little colloquial with it, huh? Yesterday I woke up sucking lemon. Yesterday I woke up sucking a lemon, and then there are two colors in my head. And that's it. Right?
And I get so much out of that song, even on the motifs that he repeats. Each one to me invites a different feeling, and a lot of that may have to do with the way he sings it, but there's so much feeling given out of that song. I feel like I'm getting into a bit dramatic here already, but like it gives me so much for how little is there, maybe lyrically.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible.
Well, and also knowing a little bit about the background of what Tom York was going through, that he, was suffering from really intense anxiety and depression and had gone through these nervous breakdowns. To me, this song sounds, whereas a lot of the lyrics on OK Computer and some of the lyrics on this album are kind of looking at the modern world with, I think, an air of disgust and fear. This sounds like somebody who's like, I'm going to put all that to the side and try to anchor myself, and that this is like a meditation, is how the song feels to me. This song feels like it's somebody trying to find some sense of inner peace, as opposed to being like kind of a cultural critic, where I feel
it
like
also feels a little ironic too, like with, I was saying how like there's really no true tonal center. Another way of saying that is like, I don't know if the feeling that this song gives me is happy or sad. Like, is everything in its right place, or is it totally an inversion of that?
Right.
Am I totally all over the place? And am I waking up drunk and wondering where the fuck am I?
Right.
Like, which is, we talked about in a previous episode, this song is used as the needle drop to Vanilla Sky, which is a movie that I love. And, he wakes up in his apartment and he's this, rich person living in downtown New York, but there's a dreamlike quality to it. I'm not going to describe the whole movie, but it's very, very well used. I think in terms of what it makes, at least this listener feel, and then how it's used in that movie and other movies as well, too. Very, 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 very good song.
Killer opener. And also, one last technical thing I'll say, and say very non-technically, but just also a really good example of what we were talking about, the kind of mix of the analog and digital or acoustic and electronic dual approaches to this album. Tom York recorded his vocals, and then the vocals were played through a synthesizer. So where you hear all that kind of chopped and screwed stuff going on with the two colors in my head, that really, to me, perfectly distills the feeling of this album, because I feel like if that were made now, it would be just done 100% digitally.
Yeah.
But somebody, whether it's Tom or Johnny
or Nigel,
I was going to say, probably one of those three, do have their fingers on a keyboard playing the synthesizer, making those choices with what the vocals are doing. So it's not quite as organic as Tom just doing those ad libs in a vocal booth, but it's not as digitized as just sitting there on a computer moving things into different pitches.
And we'll talk about it too on the Amnesiac and Hail to the Thief reviews that we do. But what's really cool about that, and the how hands-on they were in that, is that this actually that type of recording yielded some new songs. So when you're spitting vocals into something that's going to digitize it for you, what comes to my mind is not, I bet you that listening to this like chopped up digital rendering of vocals yielded more songs, and it did. And we're not there yet, but I think that's really cool. And then the last thing I'll say is what, to Walker's point, like and how hands-on they were, that really comes through when they try and reproduce these songs live, especially a later song on this album. You'll see them. It is not easy, and they could just as easily have a looped backing track, and they really don't. So that's it on everything in its right place for me. Favorite opening track to a Radiohead album.
Yeah, I don't think that we have hit those heights yet, and frankly, I don't think we're going to top it in terms of openers. But plenty more to come, folks. And so track 2 on this is what we like to call in the biz a title track, and this is Kid A.
Or as I like to call it, "G'day, mate."
Or as they call it in Canada, Kid, eh?
Yeah. Or
that's what our Canadian brother-in-law said to our sister when they were planning their family. They were deciding if they wanted kids or not. He turned to her and he said, "Kid, eh?
Do you want to have a kid, eh?" This is one that, definitely when I was first checking out this album, I gave it a listen. Usually a skipper for me. This podcast has been great for not going over what I consider to be like, I've heard that before, it's just filler. There is some really cool stuff on this song. What about you? What do you think?
Same thing. This used to be a much lesser track. I'm not going to say it's my favorite song on the album, but I might as well say this now. I don't think that this album improves from making any cuts, including even the much talked about and anticipated Tree Fingers that we will discuss soon. So yeah, it's not like it's a completely different mode than what we just heard. I think it makes sense that they didn't open the album with it. Tom York was really, really influenced by electronic music at this point, and this is where you hear it, I think, the most. This sounds like nothing Radiohead has done before, whereas everything in its right place. You still hear his voice, you still hear the Rhodes electronic piano, some sounds you've heard in their catalog. But we got Phil playing acoustic drums there. So I think that this song sounds like Aphex Twin, who he was really into at the time.
Obsessed with.
Yes, and so I will say right now, I don't know a lot about electronic music. Have you listened to Aphex Twin? I started listening to them quite a bit last year, and I'm a big fan of the Aphex Twin that I've listened to. It's great to write to, and it's all over the place. Another thing that I thought I had an idea of what it was. I thought it was basically like drum and bass techno, but it's very weird, complex, often melodic, instrumental electronic music. Unfortunately, so this song sounds not derivative, but very, very directly influenced by Aphex Twin. Aphex Twin went on the record saying he fucking hates Radiohead. So that is one thing that made me a little sad.
I didn't know that.
Read it. Yeah, it's a little hard for me to.
Well, I hate you.
That's exactly my reaction. I think we've covered on this podcast.
You're not welcome here.
Almost anything I like, even including the things that are just baked into my personality, like the Beatles. If somebody else doesn't care for them, I really don't take it personally. Radiohead is the one thing where I'm like, well, now I kind of hate you. But also, I should say, he might have been being a little bit cheeky, a little bit naughty, because later he did walk those comments back and say, people have made way too big of a deal.
Comments I wish I could change my comment on.
Yeah.
The style of Pitchfork.
Yeah. Ways I would hate Radiohead less if I could. But yeah.
So do you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the scenes in maybe slower paced films that I tend to gravitate towards. Not that I only gravitate towards those films, but like maybe like films made in the 1970s or 60s even that have these sort of interlude scenes that aren't maybe the movie itself isn't super heavy on dialogue, and I kind of going into that movie I will say, oh man, it's good, but like, you know, the one or two scene of them eating dinner in silence, you know, where it's only like in the looks they exchange or whatever, kind of dreading that. But then when you watch that movie and it's an experience, you kind of see how it fits into the larger whole. I think that's how the two instrumental tracks, if you could call this one instrumental, you can hear Tom's voice, but that's how they sort of work for Kid
Let's
A
listen
for
to
me.
this sound at the end, because I think this is a really, sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
this
that
is
was
a really
it.
neat.
Very Christos Pondreski.
It sounds like a synthesized sample of like a baby crying to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's just an instrument.
That's a very Johnny Greenwood addition, who we should mention too. We were talking about Aphex Twin. Johnny Greenwood's primary, I would say, inspiration and person that he has cited the most frequently would be Christos Pondreski. Apologies, listeners, if I'm mispronouncing that. But he would be the gentleman who composed a lot of the songs for The Shining. And you see that influence on his There Will Be Blood film score.
Oh,
which
yeah,
also borrows
absolutely.
actually parts of Christos Pondreski's music. And I think that, you know, I just want to say too, guys, like guys and girls, folks of all ages, there is, you know.
So this is, so if you're
It's an all-ages
non-binary,
podcast.
this comment is not directed to you, is what you're saying.
No. Everyone is welcome to this podcast.
Okay.
Goodness, I forgot. Johnny Greenwood frequently cites that composer as one of his primary influences. So as sparse as the guy is on interviews and things like that, I think that we have a tendency as people to say this is this, that is that. I certainly do that. I look for patterns and I align them. But at least with that one, I think there is merit to it. As far as hearing the Shining soundtrack and Radiohead's music.
Absolutely. And this song is used as original soundtrack in the HBO television series The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
In the episode No Show. It is the second episode of the fourth season. And I was looking at the synopsis here. And it's the one where...
What's going on in season 4?
well, let's see. Meadow is debilitatingly depressed from the death
Jackie's,
of Jackie
yeah.
Jr. Let's see.
Okay. Well, that's all we. I mean, that's
Carmela begins her flirtation with Furio.
Furio.
Okay. Ralphie and Janice's relationship starts to get going.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so you can see, so just think about those things when you listen to the title track on Kid A. Oh, also, Christopher is appointed to capo of Paulie's crew. Patsy resents it. He's been made
does he
longer
ever,
than
yeah.
Chris. But in any case, I definitely... I was looking for something in the synopsis of this episode that directly tied it to Kid A, and I couldn't really find it.
You know,
It sounds
I was
like
a Radiohead
pretty typical
fan.
Sopranos episode.
Well, I mean, Sopranos' use of music is fantastic.
I agree, absolutely.
And I was a Radiohead fan before I had ever watched The Sopranos. But I remember hearing this and having it a vague familiarity, and being so embarrassed that I couldn't place it, even though it's like a filler track on Kid A.
Sure. But I think, as we've said, it's even what you may consider filler becomes essential. And the way I've come to really appreciate these songs is, and listeners, get ready to roll your eyes out of your head, but is by owning all my Radiohead albums on vinyl.
Yeah.
So that when I put it on, even though this album is divided into 4 sides, which is a very interesting choice because I think it definitely would fit on 2 sides, but Radiohead's very deliberate like that. They want you to
They want you to spend more money and buy more vinyl.
I guess
Those
so.
capitalist pigs.
Yeah, exactly. Man, so they claim to have left politics, yet they use money
Oh, who's that, Locker?
in exchange for goods and services?
Radiohead, a band, a capitalist.
Yeah. Supposedly, this is the national anthem? Ha! Speaking of which, listeners, the left expects you to only stand for Radiohead's national anthem?
I'll fucking stand for this all day
Yeah,
long.
next song. Yeah, this is a song I do not take a knee to, ladies and gentlemen. This is Radiohead, track 3 on Kid A. This is the national anthem. Get ready for Rock City here, and also Crazy Jazz City. Here we go. So I'm just going to say before it kicks in too heavy, this bass line is something that goes all the way back to Radiohead's early days in high school. Tom York wrote this bass line and would jam it during their practices. And then it comes back all these years later.
I've seen you play this song, I believe.
I do know how to play this bass line.
Drop D on a guitar, or
No, it's just
Standard.
on the open D string of the bass.
fret 3, then fret 4, or something like that? Are you just doing a slide
yep.
up, or?
This is fret 4, then you go fret 3, fret 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there it's change. It drops a half step that last. So I think this is one of the creepiest sounding Radiohead songs. To me, it makes you feel like you're going crazy in the best way possible. Crazy orchestral samples coming in.
For our new Radiohead fans, the dog bark is not in the original album cut,
Yeah,
but
if
it
you
kind of
pick that
worked,
up.
honestly.
Yeah, this song is very chaotic. So I think this is also, again, it's a song being played on a bass guitar with real drums. That weird moaning sound is the Owens marionette. So there's a lot going on, but this is kind of incorporating a technique in electronic music where a loop repeats over and over, but instead of it being on a synthesizer, it's being played on a bass. They're playing it with real drums. They're taking like an electronic music approach to a full band Radiohead
Well,
song.
it's so
and
interesting.
live,
Yeah.
they... Well, sorry. I talked over with the
No,
horns
that's okay.
kick in.
It just keeps building.
I'm just going to rewind to where those horns kick in, though, because it's so exciting to me. Eyes are closed, heads are bobbing here in the studio, listeners. Goes into crazy town here. Zach, but I feel like you were mid-thought about this.
No, it's okay. I think that because my favorite part's coming up. That's my favorite part.
A rare Tom scream.
And I just love his vocal affectation on it. We get traces of the previous two albums there, I think. Oh.
And what he's saying there, listeners, is holding on. Everyone is holding on, And it's, I feel like we're back in kind of that OK Computer of just like, I'm barely making it here in this fucked up world.
Well,
and this is my anguished scream.
Yeah, and we talked about
while
it.
I'm going about my dumb little business, you know.
We talked about leading into the song. We made some cheeky jokes. This song to me, of course, you could read the lyrics of any song, any certain way, but this is where I think we really start to fit into maybe like more societal commentary. What's interesting though about the writing of this song is that I think it has a very nice flow, as sort of like, big fish eat the little fish kind of metaphors, so to speak.
Sure.
But a lot of the lyrics of the song and in Limbo and Optimistic were randomized. So even though they fit together in this really poetic nature that seemed like this broad critique of not only capitalist society, but just modern society, Western society maybe, it's totally there. But I think what's really cool is that you can kind of see even the artists themselves, the author themselves, might not have been aware of how they were kind of chopping things into this poetic order. Did that make sense?
It makes total sense. I'm holding right now the book Fear Stalks the Land.
Yes.
Which is a collection of lyrics and poems and just kind of, it's like basically like a collection of Tom's kind of brain dump from the recording of this album and the next album that we'll listen to, Amnesiac.
Mm-hmm.
And I just opened it to a random page, and it shows exactly what Zach is talking about.
I love that so much.
So wild. The instruction given to this horn section was to make it sound like a traffic jam.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can really hear that. But yeah, just the randomization of it. So here are lyrics for everything in its right place. And it's, I am not hearing straight. I cannot be hearing straight. I must be completely stone deaf. You see, yesterday I wasn't hearing it straight, but today everything is in its right place. Right? None of those lyrics are in the song. But then over here on the next page, it says, yesterday I woke up sucking a lemon. And there are two colors in my head. So, and then this phrase, the title of that last song, the national anthem, that phrase appears in the lyrics of this book over and over again. So there were these little turns of phrase or these themes that Tom was working with that you see appearing over and over again, and then we're all thrown into the blender. And I do think that's a really cool thing that it fits together so well, but it's randomized. And I think that's it works because he writes from such an opaque place where you can't ever pin down exactly what he's talking about.
I think this one, though, this album and the lyrics on it, even more so than Amnesiac, even though they are kind of one session, I think the visceral maybe violence in the present in the lyrics, like heads on sticks, cut the kids in half, stuff like that are not at all, not talking about acts that should be committed or will, but there's a lot of like visceral sort of allegory that I think speaks to broader economic and climate issues.
Yes. And also things taking a turn to the right in England and America at this time.
Yeah, very much so.
Like, that even though we joked around that it's pre 9/11, but they seem to know. They are, I think, politically responding to Bush and Blair.
To Blair, big time.
Yes. And so,
because this is pre-Bush's election.
Right. Right. And
not to say that they're happy, but
it came out
from what I've read.
That's right. Huh?
Yeah. So from what I've read, I think Radiohead had a general dejection with exactly what you were talking about in our previous episode, that like you make shitloads of money and you don't know what to do with it and the system is what it is. That very frank interview that he gives on Meeting People is Easy. I think it's an amalgamation of those feelings combined with political discomfort is what I would say.
Right. And it is interesting that even though this is pre-Afghanistan and Iraq war, the imagery is becoming much more imagery of warmongering, violence, and like an appetite for violence. I think that's like a lot of what he's talking about is not just like, oh, look at all this grotesque violence. It's talking about, it's some of it's from the point of view of somebody who's like bloodthirsty, you know, and they want to see it.
Now you may say, listeners, our large contingent of warmongering conservative listenership,
Yeah, and we love you too.
what is a Brit leading a rock band? Why are they telling me, making these observations and potentially preaching? Well, the thing I love about Tom York then and now is when faced with, hey, you're pointing these things out, you're using visceral imagery or whatever, what's your solution? I read an interview with him from Hail the Thief, and he said, I don't know. Why are you asking a musician what his solutions are? Which I was just like, maybe that strikes differently with some people. I'm not saying that he should have said that, but that is one of the best flip the answer back to I've ever heard, when they're like, so what's your solution, Mr. Poetic writer here pointing things out wrong with the world? He said, I don't know. That's why I'm in a fucking band.
Right.
And I think the person who's being told to shut up and dribble or asked what to do, if they flip it, I think that's okay with me.
Absolutely. And also Tom York is being modest because I think he is very active in left-wing politics in England and like is something of a political activist. I also think
for sure.
Art is an important piece of raising the consciousness of things like that. Raising a consciousness of issues of the day. It's amazing that they're able to do it in a way that doesn't feel stuck in its time. It's also unfortunate because it means that climate change is as pressing of an issue.
Yeah.
But we keep referencing climate change. It's right now at this point in the album, it's maybe being addressed in a way of general unease. But there's a song coming up here that addresses climate catastrophe very directly.
Not to mention the album art. So listeners, hopefully you've at least gotten that far. So the cover of Kid A is certainly, Antarctic, poles, whatever. But, there's clearly like a Mount Doom sort of volcanic eruption happening in a, an Arctic wasteland, and then a very red sun rising. So I think that there's sort of that disconcert with the climate, the literal climate, with the album art.
Yeah, Radiohead doesn't. I mean, for a band that has a song called "Optimistic" on this album, that never seems to be the way they are kind of projecting the future to their listeners. But all I was going to say is, not only do I think that like socially conscious music or music that raises issues is as important as any other form of activism. I don't know. I might want to backtrack on that. Is also its own form of activism. People only ever ask that question to entertainers in either sports or
TV and film,
or music. Is, well, why are you talking about this? You're an entertainer. Nobody's ever like, you work at a car delership. Why are you expressing an opinion about politics? It's weird that that's the only job that we expect people to not have any vocal opinions about.
I think the way I've
politics
kind of come to appreciate it with Radiohead in particular is thank you, filmmaker, musician, lyricist, whomever, for getting these wheels turning, at least in my mind. You know what I'm saying? And I don't then expect that. In fact, just to kind of put my foot in my mouth here, like sometimes it does annoy me when the performer, aka Bono, has like and by the way, I just want to say, like, Bono is a very charitable human being, and I absolutely support that, and I think that's admirable and amazing. But it's I'm not telling him shut up and sing your song, but it's a little bit, I can't really dissociate that from the artist, even if I agree with their political causes. And so what I would say to a lot of the art that I admire that has gotten those wheels turning and then forced me to seek out, my own answers, even if they're different than what the author intended, is thank you for getting those wheels turning. I mean, that's a huge act in itself. And I don't think anyone listens to this and then goes, I'm going to go pursue buying more hairspray and spraying it into the air, you know? Like, I don't think it has the opposite intent, really.
For sure. Also, you keep saying getting those wheels turning. I think it speaks to what kind of a fan and consumer of media you are. Is I think maybe the reason you have a more negative, and I share this with you, a more negative reaction to what Bono is saying, even if you completely agree with it, than what Tom York is saying is Bono doesn't really leave a lot of room for you to sit and ponder what the thing is that he's talking about. Whereas Radiohead, I feel like they walk you part of the way there, and then it's like you figure you appreciate a little more ambiguity in your art.
Yeah.
And I think something that just completely unsubtly convey. You know, it's the difference between Full Metal Jacket and Platoon. Both movies are like staunchly anti-war, and about the same war. But one movie, in my opinion, the far inferior one, Platoon, has a literal voiceover telling you exactly how to feel about every single thing that's happening. And the other movie is kind of in a more documentarian way presenting these horrors of war and then letting you decide how you feel about it.
Absolutely. I think that's a terrific example.
And hey, the way I feel about that war, not good.
No, not at
I don't
all.
think we should have been there.
No,
I you know, I don't want to lose any
Vietnam War.
I don't want to lose
Staunch
any of our
advocates.
listeners who not only think we should have been there, but feel we should still be maintaining an active boots on the ground military presence in Vietnam. I want you to enjoy the podcast too. I certainly don't want to alienate you.
Walker already knows about this, but listeners, if you're looking for a far superior Vietnam War film made by the same filmmaker, Oliver Stone, who made Platoon, I watched Born on the 4th of July this week, and I would say it moved me tremendously.
Okay, I got to watch that and get back to you.
Yeah, that's all we got on board on the 4th of July.
Yeah, all right. So up next we have what I consider to be possibly the most direct. I'm going to take that again. What we have up next is what I consider to possibly be the saddest Radiohead song. Now, our Spinal Tap fans are going, does that mean it's in D minor? No, I don't think so. I believe it's in E minor.
Okay.
I believe it may even be an F sharp minor played in an E minor position,
With the
capoed
capo?
on the second fret. That's what I think.
Love
Zach.
a low capo.
I'm not positive about that. But this is How to Disappear Completely. And I think the opening salvos of this song is a good time to maybe share if you have any thoughts about it before it really kicks off.
It's moody. I know that this is a song
orchestra
they were kicking around for a while. I do like that we get a break from maybe some of the very electronic sounding sort of instrumentation, and then to the national anthem, which has this bombastic close to this sort of interlude in a way but it's not it's not without vocals.
Yes, 4 songs in and 4 completely disparate songs. Not one thing has been like the other so far.
Sure. I'm trying to imagine having listened to the song for the first time, and I have a vague memory of doing so, but who knows if it was actually the first time. But, you know, this is seen as Radiohead's slower album, slowing it down after OK Computer. But like you just said, you know, we've had 3 totally disparate songs, and they haven't all been disparate levels of calm, you know?
No, the last one is
Bombastic.
one of their craziest songs ever.
Yeah.
And I just want to shout out Colin on the fretless bass here. Sounds really good.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, because we saw them playing it at a sound check, and Meeting People is Easy, and he's playing a big stand-up bass.
Oh, okay. I somehow missed that.
And do you know about where the lyric "How to Disappear Completely," or I'm sorry, where the chorus? Man, I'm having trouble talking.
That's okay.
Do you know where the lyrics of this song kind of does have a chorus more than the first 3 that we've heard? And it's coming up right here. He says,
I'm not here.
I'm not here.
This isn't happening.
This isn't happening. I also think you can hear those classic Ed O'Brien sustained sort of guitar drones in the background there. So apparently, I'm not here, this isn't happening was given to him as something to repeat to himself by Michael Stipe, who he confided in about just like the nervous breakdown he's having on tour. And he said, just tell yourself, I'm not here.
Wow.
This isn't happening. I don't know a ton about REM, but I think Michael Stipe similarly has struggled with mental health.
Oh, and they both said, too, that he was sort of a spirit guide. Not what's the word? Mentor to Tom York.
Yes, and a similarly like shy person put in a very front-facing position, having to find ways to deal with that.
Yeah, he was like, hey, Tom, everybody hurts. Just tell yourself that. Yeah. I love REM.
What do you think of this song, Zach?
It's good. It's a little bit... I think this might be a song similar to maybe Exit Music and Fake Plastic Trees. That would be like a good sort of introduction to Radiohead, depending on the type of musical listener you're introducing. You know, I mean, it is out there, and the timing is funky with the disparate instrumentation.
And these samples right here. It's deceptively weird.
Oh, it's certainly more
There's
advanced than those.
There's a lot of weird sauce on top of like a very basic rhythm that's
Totally.
going on.
It's certainly more advanced sonically than I think. And I mean, right here, even we have a key change, I think, than those songs I just mentioned that it sort of reminds me of. But I just know that folks that are sort of a casual Radiohead listener that will cite like their favorite Radiohead songs as ones that are more slow and ambient. I know this is usually one that they will mention.
Okay, I think
Anecdotally speaking,
I think Exit Music for a film is a very apt comparison. Is like maybe the most minor key kind of down tempo song on the album. Would you compare this one to Exit Music more or less favorably? Do you like it better?
More favorably.
I think it's
I
a
really
better
enjoy the song. It has my favorite vocal moment of the entire album on
Is
this.
it coming up here in a second? Okay, we'll just let this
When he
breathe for a minute.
Sings along to the orchestra.
So you keep hearing that.
I'm not here. I'm not here.
That's it. That's my second favorite part. And I love how we start going out of key there with our strings.
Yeah. And then right here they do a crazy vocal effect that we'll let it play and then talk about it. But you hear his voice fading further and further in the background, and then So I want to say, I think all the production on Radiohead albums is a group effort, but I just want that to be a tip of the cap to Nigel Godrich right there, because the way it does that, in fact, I'm going to rewind it.
Please.
The way his voice fades further and further into the background, the reverb gets bigger and bigger to where you're hearing the reverb more than you're hearing the voice. It's fading all the instruments down, right? Fading all the instruments down. His voice is farther and farther away. You're hearing basically just the orchestra, the strings, and then they slowly bring his voice back to the center of the mix. And as they do it, they drop the reverb out. So it's like you're in the booth with him for a second. And I just love that so much. Just want to play this section again. Faded the drums to almost nothing. Faded the bass to almost nothing. I mean, that is what I'm talking about right there. Just that it's such a... I just wonder how many mixes the song went through before they got to, oh, right here, let's fade out everything but the orchestra, fade out the drums, fade out the bass, and then we're going to slowly fade the drums and bass back in and fade your voice right to the front with the same melody as the strings. It just seems like one of those... I mean, who knows? Maybe they had that idea from the beginning, but to me it feels like a breakthrough that you get after remixing the song 200 times.
Do you think in Radiohead studio like parlance they say instead of fade out they say let's street spirit the mix? I just want to say, even though I just
like our song, mate. From the bands in it.
Because Ed was asking for clarification.
Yeah.
Poor Ed, he's a little slow.
Yeah, well, he's fine, but
he doesn't even get their own jokes because they don't include him initially, and then he's confused. No, I just want to say
they keep him around for muscle because he's big.
Ed, lift that amp, yeah. No, I just even though I followed that with a joke, I think that was incredible analysis.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, yeah,
I love that song, and I mean, but I think the way
listen to it on headphones a million times, and you just noticed how.
Yeah, you know, Walker, when you listen to it on vinyl, you get those rich textures.
I didn't want to say it, but it's the kind of thing that you're not going to pick up listening to a digital copy. Okay.
No, that was it. I have always loved that part, and for me, it is more. I kind of maybe it's the fact that them playing it live on Meeting People is Easy is one of the black and white moments, but I think it goes far further back than that for me. And I don't know if I happen to be listening in my car and it was raining or something, but it really does remind me of just like overcast weather and what it would be like to be like surfing through those clouds, you know, or something as there's a break in the weather. But it's dark, but it's not so distinctly like rainy and dreary. But I really liked you honing in on the production aspects. That was really cool.
Oh, well, thank you for the compliment, my friend. And yeah, like I said, I think it's Radiohead's, you know, saddest song and the most direct interpretation of the word sad. But, you know, sad music doesn't make me feel sad. Sad music for me goes well with being depressed, but it also goes well with like a more appreciative and open mindset too. To me, sad music, it kind of is a way to experience those feelings the same way you get catharsis from a horror movie. It's like a safe way to feel those feelings without having to be in the depths of your own shit.
Sometimes I'll use it to, you know, as a bit of like an unhealthy coping mechanism to kind of help plunge me further into my feelings.
Sure.
But like usually what the result is, you know, with Elliott Smith and with certain Radiohead songs is what I'll take away from it is, you know, tremendous inspiration can be taken from this as well.
Absolutely.
And that's not a feeling that I identify in the moment, but I think that's kind of how I use it because here I am today. I haven't disappeared completely, folks.
Thank you. And we won't just yet because, listeners, now is the moment that I know some of the real heads out there have been waiting for. This is many people's top choice for Radiohead songs to pass away to. And we have amped it up very, very much since the beginning of this podcast. It is time for a little something I like to call Tree Fingers. Take it away, boys.
Take it away, boys. Gosh, listen to that flute.
Ooh, I like the drums in this part.
Yeah, totally. Ooh, yeah. Is that a kick drum? Yeah.
Is that a muted trumpet out here?
The harpsichord.
So listeners, you might be saying, I'm not hearing any of those things. That's because we're being a couple of jokesters. This is a middle of the album transitional track. This is an ambient noise track. I gotta say, when I was young, I had no patience for this song. It is one that I've come to appreciate in the context of the album.
So much so that when you would come on, you go, "Oh, fuck this."
Is that true?
No. No patience for it.
Now,
smash his copy in anger.
Yeah, exactly. I never made it past this song, and I don't know if there's any good songs after this. You know, I don't know, man. I was an immature young lad, and I didn't have time for ambient music, but I appreciate it now. I want to know, would it surprise you to know that this song, Zach, is basically an Ed O'Brien joint.
No, and taking away all previous jokes that we've made about Ed, I actually think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that it makes sense in both ways. I think it's impressive, and I think on the other hand, I could also picture walking into a massage parlor,
Yes,
and with dimmed lighting, and that's not to say at all too that this is derivative or uninteresting. I think compared to the title track of the album, Kid A, it's less interesting and a little bit more. Not even mainstream, but I mean, I like the example I just gave of walking into a massage parlor with dimmed lighting. Like, it's very much, it's not Radiohead interstitial music, whereas Dollars and Cents, Kid A, maybe are a little bit more distinctly Radiohead.
absolutely. You could tell me that this is Brian Eno, and there's nothing about it that is distinctly enough Radiohead that I would be able to contradict you. I agree with you. Like, it's cool that it's a O'Brien contribution, but it also I thought was very funny because I did not know that today, and we often go, what is Ed exactly doing in this organization? And you know, here he is showing you what he's been up to. While Tom has been completely redefining his approach to songwriting. Ed has been saying, what if we played 3 different notes for 4 minutes? But what this is guitar loops, then digitally processed and rearranged. So it's more of that taking an acoustic instrument and then processing it digitally.
I did just realize, though, that if it is an Ed joint, and I think about the song we just heard with the orchestral parts that, you know, may have been... I'm thinking about Pyramid Song, and then from the album after that, Hail the Thief, there's a song called Where I End and You Begin that sort of feature those same noises, and it makes me wonder if Ed has anything to do with those textures. And it does make me appreciate Ed, you know, in that regard.
I'm sure he does. As much fun as we poke at Ed.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, that's become the main thing of this podcast. In fact, this song should have been called Ed A. I think that is what Ed contributes is he adds to the sauce. He's the sugar in the gravy in the famous pasta scene of Godfather.
Right.
That's the secret.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, you're never you wouldn't be eating that pasta sauce and being like, the main component here is sugar.
Or is Ed?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Ed is the sugar.
That taste, Ed?
He makes it better. Yeah. What is this? A little O'Brien in the stew?
A little Seminole O'Brien in the pasta sauce?
So yeah, that's Tree Fingers. Real quickly, I wanted to say, you said you made a joke earlier about the Tree Fingers subreddit. So this is a post on Reddit that I found today. All right, this was posted 3 years ago by user Careless Importance. Okay, you ready for this?
Careless Importance. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Somebody please, dear God, tell me what's so good about Tree Fingers. The song Tree Fingers from the album Kid A is a long-ass cut of ambient white noise that only makes me because bored. I understand if it's a transitional song or whatever, but I see so many people praising it, I have no idea why. Enlighten me. And then somebody says, it's ambient music, and for being that, it's pretty good. There's way more
fucking idiot.
boring music than Tree Fingers in the world, and it pads out the record nicely. Cheers.
Yeah, don't go listen to any Cigaros anytime soon.
Yeah,
my
exactly.
friend.
And somebody says, serves as a necessary transition from the most depressing song on the album to the most upbeat song. Now, I think that's a very nice lead-in for what is next, and I think that's a very, very fair and well-articulated idea about the purpose of Tree Fingers. So what's the most upbeat song on this album, do you think? Here it is. This is Optimistic by Radiohead. Phil really getting to shine here.
So I have a little... I wouldn't even call it a hot take, but to me, this song has moments of reminding me the most of OK Computer of any on the album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because of the kind of octave chords that are played once things cut down in the mix.
It's also the most melodic song. It's also the most verse, chorus song.
Well, interestingly enough, Walker, once we get past everything in its right place, statistically speaking, if you make a table of songs that use conventional form, so verse, chorus, Kid A is number one after the OK Computer era. So we see something that's called through composition, which is a section that never repeats throughout an entire song.
Okay.
In 2 + 2 = 5. So that's a song that has 4 distinct sections that none of which ever repeat.
Okay.
And future guest of the show, that's me putting out in the universe, Brad Osborne, in his book Everything in Its Right Place, talks about this basically in doing a balance between Radiohead's most complex music post OK Computer and the type of song forms they use. And basically the point he's making is he's like, Kid A is such a departure, and the timbres and the textures and all that are so different than what we've heard before. So they actually return to form, statistically speaking, more so than OK Computer, even with conventional verse chorus. And it's really interesting to listen to the album through those eyes, because it is still like you still struggle to pick out a chorus, I think, at times. But it just as far as repeating sections musically and then vocally. And we really depart from that in Hail to the Thief.
That's really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
We don't get too many codas in this album like we do in the way that we get them in There.
Oh yeah, they do become.
We
a big
have a
fan of the
motion
coda
picture
starting
soundtrack,
with
but,
In Rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and there's not a single song on In Rainbows that has a chorus. Not a single one.
you just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Think about Jigsaw Falling Into Place, one of the most cleanly recorded, not a single chorus.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's fascinating.
I mean, I'm a couple albums ahead. I'm sorry, listener.
That's okay. This is also, I was gonna say, this is the most 3 guitar song too.
I love this
Right
part.
here,
This is my
so-
favorite part. Chills.
So it almost opens up. Almost opens up. They're teasing you.
No, but I mean,
Radiohead are being some big time prick teasers right now with this one.
taking the easy way out, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm ever gonna get to, make a seminal album of my own at this point, if you know what I'm saying, Zach. You definitely hear all 3 of the guitar players doing guitar. All right.
Angry.
Very snarly.
Leveling out. The drums and bass.
This is to me the most Beatlesy progression on the album. Right?
That roll down too. Yeah, I agree. Totally. I could see it as a John song on
Abbey Road.
Abbey Road. Yeah.
It sounds like Come Together.
Big time. This was a song, Walker, too, that I've always loved, and I think this was one more familiar in my Kid A catalog, because I think that the style of singing he does is very present on Hail to the Thief, which is, I think, vocally a very strong album. especially the way Tom York lets his sustain go and the you can try the best you can. Oh, I don't want to even try and sing it on this podcast. We hear shades of that and like they're there maybe, which is just a way of saying that like, you know, belting a note and he's not off key, it doesn't sound flat or sharp, but it's complete trust in the music and in his voice tying in. But this was a song though that I thought I was familiar with, and listening to it for the 27th time or however many times it's been on the way up here, I was like, oh, I forgot that this album fucking rocks too. You know, and I mean it's that thing where it's like, I know how that sounds or whatever, and then you listen to it just all the way through, sequenced the way it is, and it was mind-blowing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No notes, nothing to add. I love that fucking song.
It's so good.
We stay in kind of that... well, I'll just play it. So this is the next song. This one segues into it with no transition of silence between the final notes of Optimistic and this.
So... Been breaking our rule a little bit about not talking about future albums. I think we've done a really good job of not invoking Amnesiac. Not going to be able to stop myself here. I think this is very Knives Out with a sort of just downward motion of the guitar. Knives Out famously took them 313 hours to record.
Oh, shit.
Right there, the do 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 do. I think it has a very Knives Out sort of rhythm to it, even with the sort of drumming.
Yeah, can you tell me what time signature they're playing here? Or?
No, I know it's unconventional, but I don't know if it's because their instrumentation is in different signatures with each other.
I guess it is. I'm counting a 4 count, but obviously.
Oh, I love that.
The drums are playing in 4/4, I guess, but then the instruments on top of the drums are playing in different time signatures, and that's as far as I can get with that.
And Limbo is played at 89 beats per minute or 22 measures bars per minute. Time signature is 4/4.
What the hell? How do they make it sound so crazy?
You know, I think it has to do with the way that they layer the instrumentation. Like the do-do-da, do-do-da, do-do-da. Doesn't at all sound in harmony with... And I think Tom York really picks his spots vocally very interestingly on a lot of these songs.
So I think this is a little bit of a like piece with the last song in that it's another band where you're hearing guitars, bass, keyboards, and drums.
The drums sound very natural, too. They sound very acoustic.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy.
So completely different type of song melodically, but they're staying in the same kind of arrangement.
I think what could throw listeners off, you know, including you and I, is that is that a keyboard?
That's the Rhodes electric piano.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beats that they combine within the guitar is like... There's so much tension, and it's very difficult to discern like what key this is in. I think maybe that could contribute to like what time signature is this in. Even though those do sound odd, I think it's really hard to find the tonal center of this song.
Do you like this song?
I do. I love this song. This one's a sneaky one for me.
Same. It's a grower. Cool ending here.
We were talking about word painting too on our OK Computer episode, and it's always difficult to pin down if it is word painting, but to me, In Limbo directly correlates to limbo and the Catholic faith. Like, you know, where do you go? And I don't know if there's a song that more invokes that feeling. You know, like it's very evocative of that. Or echoic, I guess, would be the the actual correct terminology. But
sure.
Do you agree at all? Do you get that feeling?
Yeah. I don't really know the lyrics though. The main refrain that he repeats is "You're living in a fantasy."
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the lyrics on this album as I am on others. What's this song? This is a skipper, right?
Yeah, fuck this song. This song is called Idiotech. Listeners, if you're realizing that bears a similarity to the podcast name that you are listening to right now, ding, 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 you got it. Idiotech, a play on idiotic and the techno beat
One of the first
song.
fights my wife and I ever had when we were just a wee dating couple. She goes, "It's idiotique," And I go, no, it's not. And we were
God.
freshly dating, and I was head over heels, but I couldn't. I go, no,
Did
it's
you
not.
kind of pretend to?
No. I said,
you
no,
were-
it's not.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
No.
Guess
This
who won that
relationship
argument?
can't be built on lies. So that drum sound, I believe, is sampled from a very, very early electronic recording from the 1940s.
Yeah, running it through. Yeah, we'll talk about the production aspects of maybe after. This is such a good song.
So, if you don't mind me saying, this song is the one that I think is pointed out as most directly dealing with coming climate catastrophe and the, leadership in the Western world doing absolutely nothing to curb the consumption of fossil fuels, the burning of fossil fuels that are leading to the death of our planet. And here he's saying, Ice Age coming, Ice Age coming. We're not scaremongering. This is really happening. So, this is about as overtly political. I mean, I guess it's crazy that climate change is a political issue, but this is about as overtly political as Radiohead ever gets. Would you agree with that?
I would say that it. Oh, God.
My favorite
I
lyric
couldn't
is,
talk over that. It's just...
mobiles squirking, mobiles chirping, take
Yeah.
the money and run, take the money and
Oh
run.
my God! It just the way his vocals. It's only 2 tracks are layered. Are just so gorgeous. No, I would
And then
say,
we got Ed doing the harmony there.
yeah. Well, live. This is all Ty on the recording.
You think so?
Yeah, they don't let Ed's big mouth do any of the recording.
He doesn't sing any of the harmonies on the albums?
I don't think so. And I mean, jokes aside.
Sad.
No. I mean, you got to be able to, train the person on the road a little bit, to like, you can't trust him in the studio with a loaded firearm. But I would say that maybe You and Whose Army and then 2 + 2 = 5 are probably a little bit more politically overt, even though this one does
Sure,
seem,
yeah.
people have sussed that out based on the album artwork and
Well, Ice Age coming,
yeah.
Ice Age coming.
But like You've Not Been Paying Attention. I think 2 + 2 = 5, which is from George Orwell's seminal
Yes.
work.
It's a very Orwellian song.
Brave New World.
They also referenced Animal Farm on Optimistic.
Yeah, and I was joking. I know Brave New World is written by Aldous Huxley. But
I apologize. I rocketed right past that.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this is in the top 3. I would put those 3 songs: You and Whose Army, 2 + 2 = 5, and this song in the top of overt political. Or like you were saying, it shouldn't be a political issue, but
But it is.
it is. Yeah, sure.
It is because, it's always a political issue to regulate the amount of profits giant corporations are able to make, and that's what it's going to take to do anything about climate change.
As
Enough
spoken by Idiot Talk,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
Radiohead podcast.
Look, I mean, honestly, give out all the paper straws you want. This is only going to happen if we fucking regulate fossil fuel industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's and it's even interesting too. Like, this album isn't dated, but we now refer to it as climate change, and I think in some ways that's been a more holistic term and makes it maybe a little more timeless. The goal isn't to make it timeless to make it marketable, but I think it was called global warming at this time. At least that's how I understood to refer to it. So he's saying Ice Age coming, let me hear both sides. I don't think he's really asking to hear the argument that the Earth has always had climate cycles, but I do think that it's a very raw song to say Ice Age coming, let me hear both sides, throw in
Right.
the
I think
furnace.
it's juxtaposing how ridiculous it is
Sure.
to stand around debating this when the catastrophe is
Right.
upon us.
Mhm.
Great fucking song.
Well, not to date this episode at all either, but for the first time in recorded history, too, the United Kingdom recorded the highest temperatures since we've been recording temperature.
Yes, but that's fine. Listen.
As said by Idiot Talk and Radiohead Podcast. Yes, but
That
that's
is
fine.
the argument against it, right? It's like there's like, hey, the whole planet is heating up. Like large swaths of it are becoming uninhabitable. There's completely chaotic and unpredictable weather patterns. There's hurricanes where there didn't used to be. Sheets of ice are breaking off into the ocean,
Or
and all
61 Olympic-sized swimming pools are breaking off to the ocean.
right. And then there's the counterpoint. That's fine. It's fine.
We didn't used to measure temperature back in the 1860s. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, everything wasn't great in the 1860s either. Would you like to go back to not measuring the ice cores?
It was for some people, Zach.
That's true.
The same people who would like to go back there now. Listen, we don't.
Not to get political.
Yeah,
but...
gosh, you guys just wanted to enjoy a nice Radiohead podcast. Let's get back to making jokes about jizz. I will say about that song too. One thing I really appreciate about it is it's one that live they make it sound completely different. They take all the samples and the loops and they chop them up and make it sound all crazy. Listeners, if you want to give yourself a treat, I would say go watch their SNL performance of that song.
Very cool.
Really, really cool.
What's the other Optimistic or or is it National Anthem they play in that same?
I don't
set?
remember.
Ooh, it's very fun. It's Tom being naughty, as we talked about in our just because. Sorry, the Idiotech they do play, but it's a 2-song set.
Why is he naughty? What does he do?
He's not naughty. I think it's more that it's the first time we had maybe seen the frenetic sort of dancing and that sort of stuff. So I think that playing any song off of Kid A for your SNL appearance is a bold move. Let alone if you're going to show this new sort of side of yourself. And I applaud him for doing so. Absolutely, it's just it's interesting to watch in context.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a good point to bring up because we talked about last time how uncomfortable he is as a frontman during the OK Computer era. We've talked about all the anguish he was in, but it should be said, I can't speak for Tom and his mental health, going forward from this point, but at least in terms of his performance, he seems to really, really emerge from his shell after this album and embrace the role of frontman. He dances. He has really unusual, cool dance moves. And he seems to improvise vocally a lot more on stage after this. He grows a beard. He becomes more handsome, in my opinion. He kind of takes on a certain frontman sex appeal that was kind of lacking from the
By
early
embracing
stuff.
himself.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
He kind of embraces the weirdness of, and the weirdness of his voice too. That it's an unusual voice, and that he's not fighting against what his voice sounds like anymore. And so, yeah, that's
by embracing his inner creep and weirdo, he became not a creep or a weirdo and a sex symbol.
And then he is talking to his girlfriend, waiting for something to happen after this. No longer pretending that he has a girlfriend.
I want to come back to that, but we're coming up on. I don't think it's the actual closer track, but it's the closing track with vocals and. Correct?
No, we have 2 tracks left. This next one is Morning Bell.
Oh! Before we go to this one,
Okay.
Could we take a Hail to the P break?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
So we're almost done with the album at this point, right?
I believe so.
And we just listened to.
Your vocals are coming through, okay?
Yeah, I'm great.
Okay.
So we just listened to Idiotech. And so now we have the penultimate song on this album. We are almost at the end here. The next one is a personal favorite of mine. This is Radiohead's Morning Bell.
I fell for it again. Hook, line, and sinker. Even when there was a signal that it wasn't the right song, I was like, oh, I don't remember that trickery.
All right. Sorry about that, folks.
Oh,
Just had to do
goodness.
that one more time.
Well,
boy.
now you should really fool with me and play the alternate Morning Bell.
Oh, my gosh.
Imagine how shocked I'd be.
No, listeners, of course, we've had a lot of fun, but let's get down to business, right? Let's do our homework here. Let's eat our vegetables and listen to Radiohead's
Let's
Morning
stop
Bell.
kidding around.
Ooh, very good.
Could I, Mike?
Second song in 5/4 time.
Now, is this Morning Bell MOURNING or
No.
MOR? Okay.
What is a morning bell? Is it an actual? Is it a thing, or is he taking some artistic license there?
Look it up. I always imagined it as being like your morning bell, like your alarm clock, but
Oh,
because what were bells used to signal what time to you was? It's an English thing.
I think this is a awesome song. What do you think?
I love this song, and I think that I know we've been going here well over 2 hours at this point, right?
We're coming in on our longest one.
So I don't really want to save this for the end. I think that the beautiful thing about this song and the subsequent Amnesiac tours, but they're really hard to kind of separate because the albums came out within 8 months of one another. This is a song that really opened up live. The live performances are astonishing, and I almost feel like a lot of the live performances from this song and from from Amnesiac, are possibly kind of in revolt of a lot of the reviews they got. They're like, hey, your favorite guitar band has become an electronic band.
Right.
This song would sort of typify that. I Might Be Wrong, which is on the next album, really shows that, the national anthem. So I love this song, and I think it's really great in its raw form on the album, or maybe even more digital form on the album, because I can't tell if that's Phil playing or a looped drum track. But yeah, I love this song, and I love what they're able to do with it live. Unfortunately, didn't get to see him obviously on that tour, but the footage from this era is incredible.
Absolutely, and it definitely sounds like it's acoustic drums, but it might be looped.
Well, regardless, it's played, naturally by a human drummer, and I love this part.
He's saying, cut the kids in half. You want to hear what Tom says about this song?
Sure.
So, because I was going to ask you what you think this song's about, but maybe this will inform it a little bit. So this is Tom York on the song. He says, it's very, very violent, extremely violent. The really weird thing about that is I wrote the song with all the words pretty much straight away, which is basically the only one I did that with. So this one's not fragmented and collaged the way the other ones were. I recorded it onto mini disc, and then there was a lightning storm, and it wiped the mini disc, and I lost the song. I completely forgot it. Then 5 months later, I was on a plane, knackered for 24 hours. I was just falling asleep, and I remembered it. It was really weird. I'd never had that before. It's gone and took a long time to come out again. The lyrics are they're not as dramatic as they sound, except cut the kids in half, which is dramatic no matter which way you read it.
I wonder if that is a biblical reference at all, or
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Solomon. But I mean, some of this sounds like it invokes maybe a really bad breakup or something. Like, you can keep the furniture, a bump on the head.
That's what
down
I
the
always
chimney, release me, please release me.
Well, you asked me what I thought, but I could tell you were leading though with maybe.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I asked what you thought, and then I just fucking talked. Yeah. What do you think this song's about?
No. I thought that you were leading to maybe an explanation, which we haven't really gotten from the band. So I just would say that was a feeling I've always gotten. And the reason why I've examined this one a little bit more closely is because, spoilers, listeners, there is an alternate version of this song on the aforementioned Amnesiac. So I've gotten a chance to kind of dissect the lyrics, which are a little bit easier to maybe understand word by word than some of the other songs. And that's how I always felt. But I always thought too, it can't be that if that's what immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, but you know what? He has other songs where he uses there's other songs that are about this that are like a very poetic license. They're indirectly about a breakup, like this House of Cards and Wolf at the Door.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I was gonna say all of those are kind of sound like they're about like abusive relationships to me.
Yeah, very much
and
so.
this one could be too. You know,
Wolf at the Door for sure.
Wolf at the Door, very much so. House of Cards, maybe not abusive, but like it's like somebody. It's I think it's like about courting somebody who's in a relationship, but a bad relationship, kind of.
And forget about that shitty relationship that's about to explode.
Yeah, exactly. But here it's like cut the kids in half, right? That's evocative of like a divorce. And then where'd you park the car? Where'd you park the car? Clothes are on the lawn with the furniture. Now I might as well. So it sounds like it's like calling back to a stupid argument. Where'd you park the car somehow led to your clothes all being out on the fucking lawn.
Or your golf clubs, like in The Sopranos when Carmela throws his golf clubs out the front of the door.
Yeah. Tony,
Full
you
circle.
piece of shit.
The Russian called. Our son answered.
Remember when...
Carmela, open the door.
Remember when she's mad at him because he was visiting his ex-girlfriend in the hospital because she had a suicide attempt?
Yes.
And then he tells her to try to like evoke sympathy from her.
Gosh,
He's like, she loved me too much. She didn't want to live without me.
She didn't want to live without me, the poor kid. She goes, you actually want me to feel bad for a slut that fucks you? I didn't say it. I mean, I repeated it, but that's written in the show, guys. I don't use the
That's
words.
Carmela's opinion.
That's
not-
Carmela. Her words, not mine, that I just repeated.
Yeah, we're extremely pro slut on this, especially sluts that fuck you on this show.
I was into slut shaming because who else would fuck me?
What's that? Is that a
Norm
Norm Macdonald joke?
Yeah. He said, I was ahead of the curve there. I never shamed sluts because who else is going to fuck me?
That's really funny. Is that on the new one?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's amazing.
That's a funny joke. Well, hey, guess what? We have made it to the end of this album. You have anything else you want to say about Morning Bell?
No.
Okay, this last song is called Motion Picture Soundtrack. And when you hear it, I think you might understand why. Now, I would maybe put this high on the list of Radiohead songs I would like to die to.
Absolutely. I think that the outro especially is very well, we can decide that. I mean, I'd prefer not to be the instrument of your death, but I mean, we could put on a Radiohead song and
then you kill me?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that sucks because it's like then only one of us gets to do it. Who's going to kill you if you kill me?
Who's gonna kill you? So that was sung to the tune of Who's Gonna Drive You Home?
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't gotten that far yet.
Kai?
I got a couple candidates, yeah.
Okay, great.
A couple irons in the fire.
Maybe she's still pissed about the time you corrected her about Idiotech and she'd like to murder you.
No, what's so sad is that I said, I don't think, that's not right. Knowing full well what it... That,
Yeah, but you were like pretending to be low-key about it.
Yeah, she's like, Idiotique, love that song. And I was like, listen, I love you. In my mind. But, but that's not correct.
Did you already know you loved Kai at this
Yes,
point? Okay,
absolutely.
That's adorable.
Yes.
Have you
And-
guys revisited this?
Yeah, but I mean, the great thing about my wife is that she's not me. She lets things roll off her back, and she just goes, whatever.
Yeah,
Like, she
who
doesn't
cares?
care.
I like
she
the
doesn't care.
song.
Yeah.
And he never says it in the song, so it's like, it is up for debate.
Well, that's why it was up for debate, too.
Right.
She's like, and I was like, just listen, hun.
That's so funny. Look, you're a nice girl, but for right now,
Shut up.
All right, listeners, listen to this right here.
Yeah, the flute coming up.
And the harp. Oh, you were making a joke because it's so clearly a harp?
Yes.
Okay. I'm an idiot.
Joanna Newsom, I believe, played on the song.
Oh, yeah, a little
The
guest
only harp
spot.
player I know by name. But
Yeah, sure.
Have you done a deep dive on her at all?
No, but you know what? I really should because I feel like the taste profile of folks I know who are really into her music, everything else they like is stuff I'm really into. I got to be honest, her singing voice has been a little bit of a barrier to entry for me. But I there's so many artists I like that have like untraditional sounding voices. I really think that I shouldn't let that stop me at this point. What about you? Are you a Joanna Newsom fan?
No, I've not done a deep dive, but I feel the same as what you just said. A lot of folks I know that got a key change coming up here, folks.
So, folks, this is the very beautiful, sweet, and sad album closer, Motion City Soundtrack. Motion City Soundtrack is an emo band from the aughts. I can't believe I just said that. Motion Picture Soundtrack. And the assignment here from Tom was, he recorded this as a solo lo-fi recording on a foot organ. Gosh, I know there's a name for that.
Pipe organ, or
it's where you're pumping air with your feet through the instrument.
Okay,
and that's where the sound is coming from.
That's all right.
And then he asked Johnny to put up, and then the album's over.
Oh, okay. And on the extended play, we have an untitled song, but it's more.
It's just ambient noise.
Yeah, it's nothing.
You go listen to that. Put in your free time while you're rocking out to Tree Fingers. But yeah, so they Tom asked the other members to put samples on there, and they wanted it to sound like a Disney song. And I think you can really hear that.
Absolutely.
I think it's a gorgeous song. I'm going to go ahead and out myself as somebody who has done illegal drugs before and say that that song, and I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations is passed, so you're not going to get me, Johnny Law. But
well, and he's made up for it by enrolling in the DARE program, resurrecting Nancy
absolutely.
Reagan's
Yeah,
program.
this is the story I'm about to tell you is very cringy, so it can qualify as a Scared Straight. Maybe the second or third time that I did MDMA, or as it's known by its street name, ecstasy. I made a mix CD, right, and this was on it. I believe it was the closing track on it, and I remember I labeled it. This is when back in the day when we would burn CDs, kids, and then label them with a permanent marker. The name of the mix was "I Tried to Get Mad, I Just Couldn't," because on the 90210 episode about ecstasy, Brandon takes a drug called U4EA. Or Euphoria, and then when he's confronted later by his sister, someone slips him the drug Euphoria, and then she's like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this?" And he's laughing in her face, and later she says, "If you were so mad that if you didn't want to do the drug, why did you act like you were having such a good time?" And Brandon goes, "I tried to get mad, I just couldn't."
Wow.
And I don't.
Never a better selling point for doing drugs.
I know, and he's saying that it's like this is why the drug is bad. It's a very mixed message. Because I've never tried to get mad when I have been on Molly, but I don't believe that I would be able to. To my detriment, where I've had experiences where later I'm like, oh, that person was sharing something very fucked up with me, and I was just like, wow. And then later I'm like, maybe I should have had some sort of
No, I think that's a really good way to describe it, actually.
moral outrage. But yeah, so the mix was called "I Tried to Get Mad, I Just Couldn't," and I remember that was on it, and I don't know, probably like "Do You Realize" by the Flaming Lips. Look, listeners, I was a young
go-to.
young man.
You still like the Flaming Lips, right?
Yeah, I love the I love the Flaming Lips. But what's dorky about this story is I'm gonna do drugs. Let me burn a CD with all this like feel good music on it.
Oh, I thought you had pre-made the CD and you were listening to it during your.
No, I made the CD specifically for us to sit there and fizz to.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse things to do.
No, it's not that bad. Look, if it was that bad of a story, I wouldn't be telling it. But it's a little bit cringy. So all that to say, the song evokes a very specific time in my life of being much younger and extremely high on drugs, and it makes me feel good when I hear it. Good memories associated.
That's
with
good.
That song.
That's good. I don't have a lot of. I think you were mentioning on fake plastic trees that is like similarly like not a drug memory, but tied to like a long period of time.
Yes.
And I don't think that doing drugs and having a song tied to that experience is a bad thing or corrupts it at all. But I guess I am grateful that maybe my memories of sort of listening to Radiohead for the first time are not tied to an experience such as that. I mean, definitely My Iron Lung. I always think of smoking pot because I was, a very young lad in that regard. But I think that sort of speaks to the power of good music, and not just Radiohead's music, but it's certainly just fine if you have these like pinnacle memories or what's the word I'm looking for? first experience memories kind of tied to a
Right.
song, but I don't know. I mean, it's totally fine, but I think that something that has like that much longevity, it doesn't have to be Radiohead, doesn't have to be something I like, but that is able to sort of surpass that is really powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing about great music is you will have these really formative experiences hearing it when you're doing something new, right? Like it's like if you lose your virginity and music is playing,
Sure.
you're going to remember that song forever, right? Same thing I think if you're taking drugs that if not for the first time that you haven't taken regularly at that point in your life. But great music completely transcends that. You know, I haven't done Molly in at least a decade at this point, and
Wow.
let me quickly run through my past in my mind and see if that's true.
That's okay.
I would say it's been
Sure.
we're coming up on it. I don't remember the last time I did it. I have not done it in the last 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And I still get all the good feelings from that song when I get it. And it's music will make you trip, man, without tripping.
Yeah, like an example I could think of too of something that has like a very kind of psychedelic feel, and I wasn't alive to experience this, but 2001, the Stargate sequence is very it's hard to know, like, is this of its time or is the time of it, just visually speaking, like, for folks that have seen 2001, that it's one of the more not even dated aspects of the film, but just visually iconic of the 60s. And I've never done drugs or hallucinogens while watching that film, and I never will, but it sort of like transcends that in a way to where I don't think that the filmmakers or anybody like that was maybe influenced that way, but it's not dissociated from that either. You know what I'm saying? And I don't really know how that connects, but
Why are you saying never? You're sure you'll never do hallucinogens and watch 2001?
Oh yeah,
Life is long.
Well, no, I mean, I can't say I'm sure what I'm going to do in the future. But
You said never.
I'll never say never.
What if I said, hey, come over, watch your favorite movie, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey with me.
I'd say that's not.
By
my
the way,
favorite
have
movie.
one of these beers that I got for you in my fridge. Or, oh, you're not in a drinking mood? Okay, have one of these sparkling waters. Little do you know, I've laced it with powerful LSD. You're going to make me turn the movie off to fulfill this promise
I
now
mean,
that I've drugged you? Or are
I
you
don't
going to be
know.
like, hey, I'm on drugs. We already were planning on watching the movie. Let's
I
do it.
don't. I don't like hallucinogens, so.
Well, fair
tell
enough.
them-
I'm
tell
not
the
really
stories.
going to do this. To you. I just-
No, I don't think that really connected. Other than that, to say, I think great art for me, it doesn't have to be the same art I like though, but surpasses that. And I do think that there's music I have. The Killers for me are very synonymous with like formative experiences, I would say, and I can't push those out of my mind when I listen to them. And it doesn't mean that they're altogether bad.
Sure.
Radiohead also very much represent a specific time in my life, and they transcend that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if you got to be high to enjoy something, then it's dog shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, being high certainly can
Yeah.
increase or change the way you enjoy something. What an interesting note that we've landed on here. Are we advocating that our listeners do drugs and listen to Kid A? I guess I am advocating. Look, if you don't have substance abuse issues, that's the caveat I'll put on it. If you don't break your sobriety to do this, but if you're a person who is an occasional drug user and you want to have a mind expanding experience, I say roll up a nice doobie or take your dose of shrooms or LSD or your Molly or whatever have you, and get a good pair of headphones and put on fucking Kid A from front to back.
Yeah.
And if you don't do drugs, do that anyway. I don't do drugs, and I just talked about this album for 3.5 hours.
Has it been that long?
No.
Oh, okay. No, I think that I don't disagree with any of that. I think that Kid A would probably be the album I would recommend. I say Kid A, Amnesiac, and Hail to the Thief would be the three that I would recommend to do that to the most. So, we've only got to Kid A here, so I think that's a fine recommendation. I'm like earnestly taking in your suggestion. I'm not even but yeah, I mean, it was an experience in its own. listening to it with you with over the ear headphones. It's the first time I've done that with another person in a long, long time. And it was really moving. It's a really, really, really good album.
I can't say that there's anybody on earth I'd rather do this with, brother. I love you, and I don't know if I've acknowledged that on the podcast, but I'd like to say it publicly now. I
love you for who you are and for introducing me to Radiohead. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's incredible. Listeners, we finally got there. We can end the podcast now.
We're cheersing mics.
Yeah, exactly. This is our seminal episode.
We gotta go.
Any closing words?
No, because I no, as I start talking. I want to save whatever I have like complaint wise about this album for as we kind of go through Amnesiac. I don't think there's any way I'm going to forget that. And the complaints are minimal, but just ways that it could potentially be outshined by other albums, because I really, really enjoyed this, and I would say it's the most I've enjoyed listening to this album ever.
I adore this album. Which one is my favorite? Like you said, it shifts. It's a living document, like the Constitution, which is my favorite Radiohead album. But this is definitely in contention for the top spot at any given time. I wouldn't change a thing about it. And I'm sorry that it was such a painful process for the band, but my God, are we the beneficiaries of it, because it is just a remarkable piece of work. And on that, we will talk to you about its kind of sister record, Amnesiac, next week. And I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot to that album, too. And we'll just take you out.
The hidden track we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really in his falsetto here.
Yeah. We will same sessions. I might have overestimated how short this here we go.
Kid A is the sound of the future.
Oh my God, do you remember this drum sound?
Yeah.
Awful.
I mean, don't forget, Hybrid Theory, folks, is going to come up next episode.
What's Hybrid Theory?
Linkin Park's debut album.
Oh,
Kid A
yeah.
sounds like the future. It was the future, and not in all the best ways.
We'll discuss it next week, listeners. Talk to you soon. Zach laughs off mic every time this comes up. Save me! Listeners, you bring us to life. We'll see you next week. Take care. Idiotalk is a Glenn Brothers production. Get in touch with us at idiotalk.podcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at idiotalk.podcast. And thanks for listening to Idiotalk.